I stepped out of the gym after my workout today and I looked up to the sky and I lost my mind. Like I do every time I look at the sky. Why? Because I find it absolutely fascinating and astonishing that we're we're one species, humans, on a floating piece of a floating giant rock that's in space, just going around the sun. And you can keep zooming out. We're part of the solar system, that's part of the Milky Way galaxy, which is part of a cluster. And then there's different clusters of galaxies. And then there's superclusters, which is just like massive clusters. And you can just zoom out to the observable universe, which is like some billion light years across that we know. Which means that it would take you that specific billion years of time to travel from one end to the other if you were traveling at the speed of light, which we're not even close to. All that to remind myself and you that we live in a temporary world. We live a very rich and we can live a very rich and meaningful life, but it is temporary, which is why we need to make the most of it. And I wrote down some talking points, so I'm gonna look at that. But I, so fascinating because, like, dude, people, or if there's any life that's out there in the universe, it would take them a long time to find us too, because there's no way you're figuring out that there's human life on Earth without like extremely advanced equipment. I don't even know. That's a separate video, but that's for scientists, not spiritualists. I, this concept of this vastness of space makes me feel that the human life is so insignificant, and it is. If you really consider in the long grand scheme of life and universe's time scale, bro, the average human lifespan is like 60 or 70 or something like that, maybe 80 now. I don't know, whatever it is, but about that range. Less than 100. Let's say fucking 100, just for the sake of the argument here. The average lifespan of a human, let's say 100, which it's not, compared to the age of the universe, which is 13.98 or 9 billion years old. Billion. You can't even compare that average human lifespan to that number because it doesn't even make a difference. Like you could add it there and it would still be the same number. That insignificant. So then you fall into this duality of, do you treat your life seriously and you try to be your very, 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 very best and your highest self at all times? Or do you be a degenerate? Sorry, that's the term I've been thinking of, but or you just give your time to leisure activities or just fun stuff and not focus on any movement or mobility in terms of your personal growth and your work growth. There's two sides. You do work, you don't do shit. Or that's one of the dualities that I see from this, which is something I battled with in the past, but I've come to the point where I genuinely feel that you have to balance play with purpose. You can't, I'm not a fan of just working, just hustling, just doing things to get to the next level anymore. I fell into that trap from self-improvement YouTubers. But luckily I was also on a spiritual journey on the side, which made me realize all the other things that also go into life. And I finally feel full where I can say that I'm figuring out my balance of play and purpose. Because I recognize that you have to be hardworking, you have to work hard for what you care about, because that brings you a very different kind of joy, even neurologically and physiologically in your body, like the release of hormones compared to short-term gratification versus long-term gratification. It is completely different, or it is somewhat slightly different, and the long-term gratification is sustained for a longer period of time as well. So that it's a very different kind of experience. And then the short-term stuff is also very fun. And I, I'm we're spiritual beings having a human experience, which means that we have to embrace both of these sides. We have to embrace the play and we have to embrace the purpose, and we have to integrate that in our lives, that it fits for what we want our life to look like. So it's not gonna look the same for everyone, which is why, I started my content creation journey with trying to like give advice, like do this, do this, do this. I can't do it anymore because I realized that what worked for me is probably not gonna work for most people, to be honest, because I'm a little crazy, and so is everyone, humans. Haha. I have that awareness and I recognize that my experience can help some people, certain people, but not all. And I don't want to generalize my advice because I have a very specific life path that I took. There's so many variables that change from one person's life to another person's life that you just can't compare the two things ever. Or that's how I'm feeling now. And I've done a lot of comparisons with others in the past, so I'm grateful that I finally gotten to this moment where I'm finding the balance that works for me and what I enjoy, instead of giving in to whatever social media is trying to tell me, like, oh, you need to be on your grind like 24/7, like you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to have this routine, you need to have this routine. Like, bitch, shut up. Let me live my fucking life. Like, calm down. And it took me years to get to this point. So hopefully you can learn from my experience in this scenario where balance play with purpose. You don't need to just be focused on work like all the time, or do self-improvement or personal exploration like all the time. No, dude. The whole, like I said, we're spiritual beings. I'm gonna repeat it. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, which means we get to embrace and really wholeheartedly give ourselves and our presence to the short-term gratification, the play stuff, while also having meaningful projects in our life that we work really hard for and that we strive to do better at or get better at, and having that sort of purpose. And this balance is something that will look different for everyone, and you have to find yours. The next thing I wanted to hit on is the interconnectedness of species, which it's, again, very astonishing and fascinating for me, because humans evolved from others, from apes, and going back to the lineage, there was a last universal common ancestor that really split off into these different branches, where we have bacteria, fungus, multicellular organisms, like complex stuff like us, humans, animals, that kingdom, and the plants. Like, is so life is so intimately connected that I can't believe we separated everyone. Like, we think humans are special and humans should have everything, whereas other life just does not have that same worth. I have no words, but I did want to bring it up. I genuinely think that the more we zoom out, the more you get to see that all structures that we see and we observe are truly alive in some sense. I want to make a longer video on this. To summarize what I'm trying to put out there with this, or to give an example, when you zoom out and you look at the earth by itself, and you, for 1 second, just step out and you don't think about how there might be life on earth. Like, when you look at a planet on its own, it's so dynamic. There's internal movement going on with tectonics. Well, not everywhere, but on earth we have tectonic movements. Like, there's resurfacing events in our geological history. There's volcanoes. There's all these diverse features on the surface, underneath the surface, and then we have the atmosphere, which has clouds and it rains. Like, it's living. I don't know if people. I don't know how we don't talk about this more, but planets in themselves are like somewhat living systems that are trying to maintain some sort of their own equilibrium outside of what the gravity or other forces around them in space or other radiation that's around there is like affecting them in different ways. You know, we can talk about that in a different video too. But just think about that. You know, life is really connected, and you shouldn't feel separation is an illusion, and unity is our truth. This video has been 10 minutes already, so I will wrap this video up here. And I just want to say, if you made it this far, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. And stay tuned, because I want to continue this video, because I have a few more things that I want to touch on, but I will make a part 2 for that. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning in. I will catch you in the next one.